Welcome to the Rise to Thrive podcast with your hosts, Linda Tate and Amelia Travis, your life resource for manifestation, wellness, and abundance. Tune in weekly to thrive daily. This week's episode coming at you. Good day, Rise to Thrivers. These are your hosts, Linda Tate and Amelia Travis, and we are so excited for an amazing episode today. Why things don't have to be hard. After some contemplation, wondering, how are you making your life harder than it needs to be? Welcome.
It's so hard.
Why is it always gotta be so hard? That's the first thing I think of is complaining.
Absolutely. Complaining is the energy of creating resistance and creating more of what you don't want to receive in your own life, right? I like to say worry is like praying for what you don't want. It is. And complaining is like ordering what you don't want at a restaurant. It's like just ordering that up from the universe. Like, please serve me up another dish of this shit that's like really pissing me off. Thank you very much.
If you thought that it couldn't get any worse, keep complaining and it can.
It absolutely can. I don't think there's a lower limit on how shitty things can get if you dwell in negativity. Sometimes life is actually just full of real difficulty and pain and suffering and challenge. And this is in no way to downplay the actual suffering that people may be experiencing. It is an invitation to consider, to what extent are we complicit in perpetuating our own suffering through the power of our mind?
And I think to go off of that understanding, these are the circumstances and how do you want to show up in them versus really disempowering ways to be a part of the circumstance.
Absolutely. Last week, when we wrapped up our book club, we talked about your dear friend, Mickey Singer, and the surrender experiment, which was a project that he undertook in his own life where he made a conscious decision to meet all of his circumstances as though he chose them, as though that was what he was ordering at the restaurant of the universe. And what a difference that made in his life as he endured and navigated some major challenges, but to have the perspective of, this is what I asked for, this is what I chose, and I, in my spiritual form or in my highest self, made an agreement to learn the lessons that are present in these circumstances because I wanted to. So then when you look at things that way, the entire perspective changes. But that's something that may feel really foreign to people or really challenging, or they might just be like, Amelia, Linda, what the F are you talking about? Life is hard. It's always going to be hard.
It's always been hard.
It's always been hard.
Since when you mentioned that book last week, I took that into my own practice and I was playing some games with myself, and I caught myself consciously thinking that this is exactly what I wanted. And so I'm eating dinner with my beloved and I'm sitting there uber present thinking about how this is exactly how I wanted my life to be. And I showed up in moments in such a different way, in such a different space than sort of the mundane of the moment, how things can play out. And it was really fun. So thanks for that book read and reminder last week.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is something that also shows up in another book from last week, Feminine Genius, which I will talk about until I'm blue in the face, my friends. But one of the things that Leona Silver suggests in that is simply wearing a lens of appreciation. So it's like you have your imaginary little rose-colored glasses that you put on, and when you put those on, it's the process of noticing what is good and right and beautiful in that moment and allowing that awareness to expand. And so this is something that is incredibly powerful when you do it with people, which it sounds like you were doing with your lover last week. But when you simply put on an appreciative lens as you're engaging with someone versus putting on a critical lens as you're engaging with someone, not only does it affect the way that you perceive the situation, but it has a powerful energetic effect on the other person. And if you want to test this out, like try it with someone, just be in a normal conversation. Don't tell them you're going to do it, but then put on your critical lens and like think some judgmental or negative thoughts about them, observe their body language, watch their face, and watch how their words come out. And then switch. Don't do it for too long or they'll like probably cry or leave the conversation. But then switch, do like 2 minutes and time it, and then switch and put on a lens of appreciation and watch the person come alive. Watch their heart space open, shoulders back, watch their chin lift, watch them meet your eyes more, and watch like the energy of their words. It's freaking incredible, you guys. Like
their whole physiology shifting.
I was gonna say it's like that principle of like talking to your plants, or like the experiment with the water.
The water experiment.
Is that what you're talking about? Will you tell them about it in case they don't know?
It's like, I believe Emoto, right? The experience with
I don't even know who did it. I just know that it was like
a Japanese scientist, I believe, Emoto, and we can fact check this in our show notes. But there is music, like amazing music playing by the ice cubes as they freeze, and they made these beautiful crystallizations, and then like rock music, really hard, heavy, like darker music playing, and then the ice cubes.
Like corn. Old corn, not new corn, not new Jesus corn.
And then I think they also had done it with like the positive and negative words and had similar results. And it's like proven that if you were to place like water over the word love and then freeze it, and then water over the word hate and freeze it, you would have distinct differences in the way the water freezes. And that's also an at-home experiment you could try if you want to play around with.
Get out your magnifying glasses and your microscope. Get into the kitchen and do some science, friends.
Why are you so magnetic?
But really, I think that is such a powerful testament to language, right? To what is carried in language and what is carried in meaning, and what aspect of that is vibrational and what aspect of that is having a direct effect on our cells and on our like our internal structure.
Yeah, literally made up of 75% water or more. The power of your thoughts and words to your internal operating system. Have you ever heard they say what is right is just as available as what is wrong in every moment?
I haven't, but I love that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the lens of appreciation teaches, is that there's always the opportunity for perspective shift. And I actually did this personally recently when I was traveling, and I posted it on my Instagram stories. I was in an airport, and I had just flown back from Mexico. I'd cleared customs in Florida, but I was waiting to go through security again for the second time, because you have to do that sometimes when you fly into a separate international terminal. And there was like an oppressive energy in that security line. Everybody was angry, impatient, frustrated. The lines were moving quite slower than usual. Perhaps there were people ahead of us in line who had some challenge going on, whatever. Maybe they were short-staffed. I don't know. But I noticed that I had been in such a good mood. Like I was so elevated from my trip. I had just downloaded some awesome stuff on a plane. Planes are my favorite place to work. And I was like in such a good mood. And then I got into this security line, and it took less than 3 minutes for me to feel angry, annoyed, judgmental. And I was like, thankfully I had a moment of awareness, and I realized, these are not my feelings. Like these, I don't own these, right? And it's going back to what we've shared in previous episodes about like recognizing, that you could be the oak tree and other people's energy could be the weather. It's, this grounding practice. But the cool thing was I decided to broadcast a field of appreciation. And so I put my little imaginary rose-colored glasses on, and I started looking around at the people around me and just inquiring within, like, who really needs the love and appreciation right now, and then just sending it to them. And so for me, that was through conscious prayer, like just, asking God, please bless this person, please bring them exactly what they need today. It doesn't even have to be through words, though. It can be through just really sending them love and expanding that heart center field to encompass them. And the cool thing was I did this for however long I was waiting in the security line, maybe like 5 minutes. And when I got through to the other side, I felt even like better and more charged up than I had before. And I was just like on top of the world. And I was like, how cool this is that was fully available to me in that moment. I also could have gone down the rabbit hole of like, this sucks and like it's taking forever. And I was going, I was like, this is so hard to stand in this line.
You missed your flight because you go so.
I had nowhere to be. Like, I had 2.5 hour layover. Like, I was not in a rush, you know? And so it's just so interesting how often our annoyance or our judgment or our frustration or just that sense of this is hard, because that's what I was feeling in the line, was like, it's so hard to be standing and waiting in this line. And then it was like, oh, or it's so fun and easy to be standing here and to be blessing everybody around me like a ninja, and they don't even know I'm doing it. Like, how fun is this? I was totally a blessing ninja, and it was so fun.
You can play with this, actually, if anybody wants like to do a homework, like group homework, but you get a partner and you can play with feeling like the energy over your head. So you would like feel just like that channel right over yourself, and then going like thinking about sending that healing out to the world, and then like to your immediate family, and just doing like smaller groups.
So to clarify, are you receiving energy, like consciously receiving energy through the crown of the head and then sending it out to other people?
Yeah, so you start out feeling the energy coming in through the crown of your head, and then first just picture healing yourself. So your partner is feeling over your head and just feeling you healing over yourself. Then you feel yourself healing out to, say, your partner. Then it expands to your family, and then to your community, and then to the world. But as you keep getting bigger and bigger, you can actually feel the energy of that space over your head expanding, and your partner is feeling over your head, and that energy channel is like pushing out wider and wider and wider.
That's so cool.
It's so cool. So a fun playtime exercise.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. It's similar to one that I teach, which is a grounding exercise, which, you know, if you're feeling like you're in a space of pain or suffering where it's perhaps too challenging to maybe even tap into that positive level of healing and receiving, you can also find a grounding practice where, you know, put your feet hip distance apart, stand up, feel yourself rooted into the ground, and then imagine that your spine is like a lightning rod, and you're actually receiving all of the energy from your circumstances or the chaotic energy in your own mind and drawing it into your lightning rod, drawing all of the energy into your spine, and then it travels down out the bottoms of your feet into the earth, where it can be diffused on its way, charging up the low belly space and your navel center, so that you can kind of reconnect with your own personal power and emotions. And I think if you're struggling to get to a place, like if it's feeling really hard to think that things can be fun and easy, maybe do that grounding practice first and try to return to a space of neutrality where you can then progress into appreciation. But actually, you don't have to do that, because it could just be really fun and easy to switch into the place of appreciation.
One, this is interesting, of like a spectrum of emotions, and like being in a space of the less resourceful emotions, right? Like anxiety, frustration, anger. And I've heard that if you can just move 1 or 2 steps up, right? So if, say, anger, you were at anger, could you get to frustration? And it's like just taking 1 or 2 steps. And what I hear you suggesting is, or just get to fun and easy, you know? So do you want to take 1 or 2 steps up, or do you want to make the jump? The decision is yours, and they're all available to you in each moment.
Yeah, absolutely. The spectrum that I usually talk about and teach is growing through pain, grounding in presence, and then attuning to pleasure. And these are basically, they're a spectrum. So on one end, we have full pleasure. Well, what is the experience of true full pleasure? It's joy, and it's expansion, and it's healing, and it's
passion,
connective states, passion, right? And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, like, what is the deepest experience of pain? Well, it's just what you said. You have rage, you have depression, you have, you know, paralyzing anxiety. Those are like the most challenging end, or less resource, right? Fear end of the spectrum. And then somewhere in between those is a space of neutrality, which is simply the space of noticing what is, without attaching a label to it of saying this is good or this is bad or I like this or I don't like this, but simply noticing what is. And so then pleasure is noticing what is with your lens of appreciation or your rose-colored glasses, and pain is noticing what is through
your black glasses.
Yeah, through a lens of a fear and
your stormy glasses.
Your stormy glasses. Yeah, take off your black glasses. So I think that, you know, you and I are both saying that these practices have been really transformative for us, and they are practices. Like, you know, I'm not walking around personally as an enlightened sage, like, you know, recognizing every single moment as though I chose it. Believe me, I still have my hissy fits and I still have my days of complaining, but I've said this before on the show, is shortening your recovery time. It's like noticing quicker and then finding that switch. And I do think that the conscious belief and the decision, and it is, my friends, a decision, that things can be fun and easy, that things are fun and easy. I believe that decision is always available, even in pain. And so when it's in pain, like fun, maybe not, but easy, there can be a sense of ease even within pain. And I believe that sense of ease comes from, like, partially from surrender, also partially from, you know, being able to notice that there are things that are good and right in this moment, recognizing that the pain is most likely temporary. What do you think about that? Like, what do you feel like if you're actually in the shit, like if you're in suffering, you're in pain right now, how do we, like you said, 2 steps up the ladder, but is it even possible to switch right into this is fun and easy?
I think it is. And I mean, it's like having like that breath practice and being able to say, like, this is right now, taking a pause and then asking what is really true. And that's something that you've helped me in, and was like, what's the truth in this moment? I have my boyfriend, he's always reminding me of this practice where he just says, whoa. And he's literally like saying, say whoa, and snap yourself out of it in that moment to say, like, what's really going on? And when you can be in like the depths of the emotional experience, positive or negative, sometimes that can take you so far away from what the truth is in a moment. And that is the constant practice, and that is the quicker recovery time, and the awareness of that going into that space. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, well, I think you said something that's really good that I also use, which is you talked about the truth, like what is actually true in this moment. One of the questions that I like to use as a check-in related to that practice of grounding and presence is, how can I come more alive right now, is question 1. And so that's often as simple as like put down your phone, right? Like you said, like be present with whatever it is that's actually going on. Check your mental browser. Like we all have this like mental internet browser in our mind. How many tabs are open and what are those tabs, right? Like you might be reacting negatively to your circumstances around you, not because your circumstances are even really bringing pain and suffering, but because you've got some tabs open in that browser that have to do with your stress around your finances or a sick loved one, or, you know, maybe there's 30 tabs open. Maybe you never learned how to double tap or swipe up on your phone and close the freaking tabs in your browser, right?
Close all 331 right now.
Exactly. So you need to learn how to do that. So one is, how can I come more alive in this moment? And that also can be a practice of like expanding your sensory awareness. So like if you have that cup of coffee in front of you, like take the lid off and like really deeply inhale the aroma, like notice how that feels. It's almost practicing pratyahara, which for our yogis, like you guys know, that means withdrawal of the senses, but it's withdrawing all of the senses besides one that you can appreciate, that you want to expand. And so, you know, it can be rubbing the backs of your own hands, giving yourself a gentle massage, noticing a scent that's really delightful in the moment, noticing something beautiful in your circumstances, but allowing that to expand to come more fully alive in the moment.
PMA, present moment awareness.
Yeah, present moment awareness. And then the second is like, how can I be most true right now? So a lot of times what we're experiencing as pain and suffering is because we're not actually we're not being fully true either to ourselves or to the people that we're with. So that's checking in with your communication. Like, is there something that is going unsaid in this moment that needs to be said? And can it be said lovingly and intentionally to bring me into a state of freedom, right? So just checking in. And maybe it's not even being true verbally to other people. Maybe it's simply being true to yourself. Check in. Like, are you in a situation that doesn't feel good for you? To me, I just immediately think of like when I was an adolescent and like being in a party environment where like you don't really want to be there, but you're staying because you're trying to be cool, right? So what's the adult equivalent of that? Like, what's the adult equivalent of responding to peer pressure? Well, I would say it's just exactly the same. It just comes in different circumstances. Or maybe even those same circumstances, you're at a party and you don't really want to be there.
And
so
it's like the meme, I'm late because I didn't want to be here. Like,
exactly. It was just like true story, half of my life, right? Like, so if you can actually observe that and then notice that maybe before you go to the thing, or better yet, when you're given the invitation, could we come so alive and so aware in that present moment awareness that we can actually be like, does this align with my desire? And if that's a no, then lovingly say, no, thank you. No explanation needed. Nothing needs to come after that. Just no, thank you. That's it. So how can I come more alive right now? How can I be more true right now? And then the third, which is very similar to the first, is how can I be fully here or be fully me in this moment? So just looking at like, closing the browser tabs, arriving in your body, and then also being fully you is like unapologetic for what is true for you, and broadcasting that same field of appreciation upon yourself, right? We tend to we talk about having a critical lens for other people, but we've got like little mirror goggles of a critical lens that are like reflecting back into our brain space all the time and causing our minds to go haywire. So we really need to check in and take those self-critical glasses off. If we could even just get to viewing ourselves with the same level of even neutrality or appreciation that we view other people, how radically transformative that practice would be.
The mini inserts of celebration and personal high fives.
Totally.
I got CC'd on an email this week accidentally, and the email was negative. And it was a Monday morning at 10:30. And I, of course, scroll all the way down to see, I'm being a little nosy. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, this is so odd. I'm on this email thread. And I read the last email, and there was a quote about like being too lazy. And then I'm CC'd accidentally on this email. And so I respond back to everyone. And I said, consider also not being too lazy and double checking who you're sending an email to. Wishing you a passion-filled week. And I took a check-in myself of I'm teaching a lesson. And I'm like, no, I'm not. It felt so important in that moment of there's a reframe and an ability for some compassion, not only to the person that sent the email, but in the correspondence. And I share that story as a reminder to all of us who have been the person that's being the asshole and then messes up, and that's essentially what that woman was doing in the email.
I find that happens a lot, actually. Not a lot, I do it a lot, but with frequency in noticing the times that I am being an asshole or being hasty in my response to something or being not generous, right, in whatever that response is. There's actually a pretty high frequency of that coming back to bite me in the butt in one way or another.
And I think it starts with thinking back to the critical lens of I would imagine that she's being quite critical on herself, and then that's what she's putting out there, and then that's what's keeping the circle circumventing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we asked this in the beginning. We said, what are you making more difficult in your life right now? Or we could also say, what are you perceiving in your life right now to be really hard? And I would ask you to actually go there for a minute and then be willing to inquire, in what ways is this most challenging? So I do believe that a lot of the times that we're experiencing pain or suffering, there's a lesson there. There's something that we maybe can learn. But also even just the inquiry of like, what about this feels most challenging can put you into a state of like metacognition, right? It can put you into that state of being aware of your thoughts because you're observing like what actually feels really difficult about that. And then if you can do that, can you take it one step further to the perspective shift, Linda, which is what you're suggesting? Is like, could I see this same situation from the eyes of maybe anybody else involved in it? Could I see it from the eyes of a neutral bystander? Could I see it from the eyes of somebody in an entirely different culture and life experience? And if I could, then how would those color my understanding of the situation? You know, case in point, if you're waiting at the DMV to get a new driver's license because you just upgraded and moved into a nicer place, right? And you're so pissed off and frustrated and angry because of the line in the DMV. Could you put yourself in the mind of someone who doesn't have a home at all? Could you put yourself in the mind of someone who, you know, has an entirely different like shelter option, right? And then maybe like find a little bit of humor even, and then gratitude in like, oh, how fortunate I am to be able to have a driver's license, have a vehicle, have a home, right? Like, and it's like, yes, there is something cliche and trite about being like, be grateful. And there's times that like people say, oh, be grateful. And you're like, fuck you. My life sucks right now. I can't be grateful because it's really hard. It's not fair.
I'm laughing because the other day I had a return to make, a holiday return. I waited really long to do this. And I'm in line and this woman is being so mean to the workers to the point where I was like, I'm a second away from saying something. And I'm trying once again, not to be like the rescuer, but I was like, what is going on? And it was like, she missed the timeline to do the return and wanted the full refund. And she needed to talk to a store manager. It was just getting outrageous. So I have the exact same thing to do as her, and I'm next in line. And I'm being just so sweet to the women. I'm like, wow, like this is what their day is like every day, is like dealing with an asshole like this. I go next in line and I'm just sweet. They like made an exception. They gave me like more than I should have probably gotten for my return. It was just so like the stars had aligned, and I had just immediately before seen the exact opposite demonstration. And this to me shows exactly that, like what's right is always available as what's wrong. And when you choose to take the higher perspective, even when it's like something annoying or frustrating, there is an opportunity for magic every time.
You're absolutely right. And I'm currently convicted as you speak. Last week, one of my credit cards, my new credit card, was stolen out of my mailbox. And for whatever reason, American Express has pretty lax activation standards. And so these young men who stole my credit card out of my mailbox were able to activate a platinum American Express with a rather high spending limit and cruise around town and go make some purchases before I noticed. And thankfully, divine timing was always available. And I was paying my credit card. I was on my app making a payment, and a charge popped up. And I'm like, I'm not at Play It Again Sports right now. That's strange. And then another charge popped up, and then a third. And I was like, I'm not at any of these places. There's some fraud occurring right now. I was angry. I was upset. And I started to make phone call to American Express, freeze the card, phone call to these merchants where it's happening. And I have a lens of suspicion and criticism. And I'm like, is it the person at the store? Like, did somebody do the RFID swipe? And I'm just like, I'm so angry. And I went through all of those encounters so angry and so frustrated, and I was banging my head against the wall. Like, it was like, for whatever reason, American Express, they could freeze the card, but they couldn't get me a fully new card number because the place was closed, and they couldn't next day FedEx it because X, Y, and Z. And even as I was in it, Linda, I knew, like, I was like, you're being a bitch right now. You're being hypercritical, like you're putting out some really negative energy, and like, this is what you're going to get back. So how about you just like try to be loving? So by the time I got to the fourth call, I think I was calling Rite Aid to be like, yo, you just had someone do a fraudulent purchase, whatever. And I was committed on that call. I was like, I'm going to like just give love. Like, it's not her fault. Like, nobody there, you know what I mean? It's not their fault. And the conversation was just so much better. I received information about, you know, who the people were. She was very supportive. She was like, you know, we can't call the police for you because X, Y, and Z, but here's what I can do to help you. Is there anything else that I can do for you? She was just so loving. And it was a reciprocation of the appreciation that I was consciously extending to her. But it was like minute to minute. I mean, literally one phone call to the next phone call, simply that conscious decision, exactly what you're talking about, happened to you in the store, to just do it differently. And then a totally different energetic response. And especially, you know, if you're doing it with someone who's in retail or somebody who works in a call center who literally all day is just being abused, like think of them as like a pound puppy or something, you know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of shit all the time. So if you're just this one person who comes in and like is like plays with them and is like nice and loving, like, you know, they're gonna want to go home with you. This is a terrible analogy.
It's just gone from bad to worse.
Yeah, where are we going with this? Anyway, my point is, yes, it's available. It is available in every moment, and it could be a really fun experiment for you guys listening.
Really fun.
Like, so fun to just even like commit one day to this, or if one day feels too much, like commit 1 hour and like put it in your phone and be like, this is my appreciation hour. And then make such conscious effort just during that period of time, whatever it is, to broadcast the lens of appreciation, to practice a willingness to receive, to abide in that awareness of reciprocity and like of what you're putting out is what you're receiving, and just see what changes. And I would encourage you to write it down. Like, keep a little notebook. You could feel like you're like a spy or something. I'm obviously really into spies and ninjas, but like document it and how powerful that can be. I'm saying this and I'm like, I'm gonna do this. Like, this is my new practice this week, is like actually blocking the time for it, so that it can be a really intentional experiment. I think that sounds really fun.
Yeah, you said earlier on like about decision and how it's like a practice and a decision in each of the moments to approach life in this way. And I really like empower people to consider what that means to them. And, you know, we're making so many decisions consciously or unconsciously in a day. And when you can tune in and be more conscious in your role in those decisions, like what's able to change because of that?
I think decision is foundational, and I think it's absolutely the catalyst, the turning point. You call it the pivot point. Like, I think decision is always the pivot point. And I observed this so tangibly in my own life over the last 2 months. So in November, and I shared this, you know, in Instagram live yesterday. So if you're hearing it twice, great. But basically, I'd had a lot of resistance for a few years around building a premium coaching program. I coached people hourly for years and I was struggling to create the impact that I desired to create with my clients in their businesses, and was also having a lot of resistance around receiving the income that was commensurate with my level of experience and impact. And so, putting that in layman's terms, like, I just struggled to put together like a 4 to 6 month coaching program and to charge what it was worth. And I had all these stories and all these reasons why it was hard. And I literally spent June to November in this, like, it's so hard. It's just so hard, right? And in November, something shifted. I had this awesome experience at our leadership summit, being around a lot of other really awesome women, you know, offering their gifts and teachings. And it was almost like I was activated by that. And in the weeks that followed, something shifted and settled in me. And I made a decision. Like, I was like, I'm ready to play at the next level. I'm ready to step into this next level of my gifts and callings. I'm ready to put together this container. And the decision of I'm so ready was so powerful that the intentions that I planted in that time of selling out a premium coaching program, of launching, you know, my first higher ticket online course, creating some pretty specific financial goals that were up around the $50,000 mark. Here we are 8 weeks after a really conscious and powerful decision. And I would say I didn't, you know, even after making the decision, it was 2 weeks before I started seeing traction. Within a period of 6 weeks, the things that I'd been having resistance around for 3 years all came to fruition. Like I sold out the coaching program. I booked the clients that I wanted into the online course. Like, and not only that, but I just started showing up with an entirely different energy that has been so reciprocated. Like these things are merged, they're blended. And I've been sitting here going, how do I communicate this to other people? How could somebody have even communicated this to me in a way that I would have been able to make this shift or have this breakthrough earlier? And really, I think, Linda, like you've always been a big part of this way of thinking for me, but I do think that it was something that you shared in your Wealth Expanded workshop in November that did a lot of the shifting. And it was really this concept just framed in different words of like, what if it's just fun and easy instead? And it can be that simple, you guys. Like whatever the thing is that's really hard, you could just, what if it's not? Like, what if it could just be fun and easy?
You melted your resistance, like your internal resistance.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was just the decision of being like, no, I'm done. I'm done with this nonsense. Like, I'm done with playing small. I'm done with believing I'm not good enough for it. Like, every time I have had a massive breakthrough, it's because I've simply shifted my willingness to receive, my willingness to suspend disbelief, and like my willingness to approach it as a grand experiment. Like, what if it just worked? What if it was just easy?
And your decision in that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is the decision was so conscious this time. It was like, yeah, you know, this next incarnation of myself who is a writer, speaker, coach, who is giving a TED Talk, who is doing women's leadership summits that are in the hundreds or the thousands of attendees. Like, when am I going to be ready to be her? And it was simply like, yeah, no, I'm ready now. This is the decision. Today I am ready. And then letting it be more. So decision is different from desire, right? Desire does need to exist before the decision. And I would say that desire is an incredibly important part of the decision, meaning like if you're deciding to do something without desire, I think you're going to run into some challenges. Like if you don't actually want it and you don't actually want to do it and you're trying to do it out of decision and discipline versus decision and desire.
That's like misalignment.
I think so. Yeah. And I think that there's absolutely a place of alignment where it's desire, decision, and discipline. But I think if you don't have desire as part of the foundation, and if you can't find pleasure or like the expansion of the fun aspect of it being fun and easy, then I think you're setting yourself up for something that is not actually, it's not actually right for you. Like I really believe that the majority of what is actually right for us is what we want. Like I think your desires and your dreams totally exist for a reason. And I think that that's because you're supposed to make the decision to do them, receive them, participate in them. And then it's easy to align in receiving. And it doesn't even have to necessarily feel like discipline, but it can feel like simply like consistent action, like consistent aligned action or consistent inspired action. And then I mean, things can unfold faster and easier than you can even imagine. Like truly, I set an expectation for years that it was going to be difficult to do this specific thing. And this has happened in many different ways in my life. And then it's always just the decision like, no, I'm going to do it. And also the reframing of like, and maybe it's going to be fun and easy, or better yet, and it's going to be fun and easy, and just declare it. So what we have desire, decision, you know, determination, and like declaration, like it's going to be fun and easy. Like just, yeah. So what can you think that about right now in your life? Like pick something. Linda, pick something.
I feel like my life is fun and easy right now.
Yeah, I wasn't really telling you. I was yelling at the listeners, but then I was like, man, you're being really bossy. Like maybe like just yell at Linda instead.
I'm doing it. I'm just doing it. I swear. But you know, I think that encouragement of what are you maybe making difficult, and one of the words that keeps echoing for me right now is like the attachment to the struggle. And that's something that I've found really sensitive to, and I could probably even turn the the mirror to myself and ask myself, what am I attached to as being difficult? You know, what story has kind of continued on a little too long, and I can hear it really easily in other people sometimes. And
oh yeah,
you know, it's like, and being able to gently like point that out if someone's willing to hear it. But if it's something that's been on the loop and the over and over and over, I would say like that's something that you've allowed be a little too hard, and there's an opportunity for that story to shift or change and look differently. And that doesn't even have to take action. That literally can be you deciding first that it's going to look different. And oh gosh, like so much power in that, like the reframe, and like back to like, what if this is the way you chose your life to be, taking that ownership and accountability, and then going from there.
Yeah. And so just to make it like super tangible, like if you examine, and I like, Linda, that you're saying like you're even considering right now, are there some aspects or areas of your life where you're still attached to the resistance, right? The thrill of resistance. Money is one that I think most of us, many of us, maybe not most, are very attached to a story of resistance. And that's something that we are culturally and socially conditioned into. It's instilled in us by the media. Like, we are just taught from a young age that money doesn't grow on trees. Like, what if we taught our kids that it does? What if like money grows on trees?
It's unlimited.
Money is always available. It's available to you in every moment. Relationships, right? How many of us have a relationship story that either we're just not good in relationships, or you know, we tell ourselves, oh, I attract the same person over and over. I attract losers. Whatever it is, but reinforcing that story. Career, you know, fitness, it's so hard for me to get a promotion. I can't find a job, like whatever it is. Nutrition, like, eating healthy is just so hard. Like, I just really love like tacos. Like, yeah, you could really love tacos, and it could be fun and easy to choose nourishing food the majority of the time, and because it feels really great in your body. So any, you know, fitness, all of these things, we can really kind of look at the areas of our life and ask, like, do I have a pattern of attachment to resistance in this area? And then if yes, like, what would it look like if I didn't, or if I had a pattern of attachment to like fun and easy?
What if you looked at the different life areas, and this reminds me of like the vision casting exercise from a few episodes ago, but you were to say like, what would be the fun and easy version? And maybe fun and easy, you're like, if you say fun and easy one more time, I'm gonna deck you. Okay, sub in whatever word you want to sub in that feels like resourceful. For me and you right now, it's fun and easy. What's the most fun and easy version of each life area? And how can I reduce my resistance to anything other than that, and know that that trajectory is available to me right now?
Yeah, and maybe it's like grace and flow. You know, if fun and easy feels like I'm an enthusiast. I'm a 7 Enneagram. I'm an ENFP. If you guys are like, what the hell are you talking about? These are personality type assessments. And like, one of the things that's common across all of my personality type assessments is like, if it's not fun, I won't do it. That's just the truth about me as a human being. Holy cow. When I realized that, so much of my life started to make sense. Why was I truant in high school? Well, because that shit wasn't fun. You know what I mean? I didn't want to go. It's like, why don't I have a full-time job? Like, I'm not like working for someone else. Well, because that's not fun and I don't want to, right? So like recognizing like, oh, I just want everything to be fun. The words fun and easy, like those feel really, really good to me. But yeah, agreed. If they don't feel great to you, like pick some other words. And I would say when it comes to words, like here's things that maybe will like prompt you or feel really good for you. One is permission, or allowing, right? So like, if you find that a lot of your resistance is around the fact that you feel like you need to earn something, or you feel like you need to be like, somebody needs to give you permission, like, here, I'm giving you permission right now. Here's your permission slip, right? Make a little, do a little drawing for yourself, or put on your computer and like create a permission slip for yourself to give yourself permission to experience life with more grace and flow, and then sign that shit, put it in your wallet and carry it around with you all day so that you can give yourself permission when you need it. So permission, I've said grace, You know, gratitude, we've talked about that, like what you appreciate appreciates. And then like just practicing the willingness to receive. So if you notice that like a lot of your attachment to resistance is perhaps rooted around like the struggle of receiving, you can do a check-in. Like if someone gives you a compliment, do you tend to automatically deflect it? When someone tries to give you a gift, do you say, oh no, you shouldn't have? Like when someone offers to come over and help you because you're sick and they want to bring you soup, are you like, no, I got it, I'm fine? When people open the door, when they offer to carry your luggage, right? You can think of all of the examples and just observe, like, do I have a tendency to refuse that assistance? Because there are these two energies, the energy of resistance and the opposite energy of assistance. And they are both energies that are coming from both the external universe and internal universe. So assistance is always just as available as resistance, right? So what if instead of refusing, you just practice saying, I receive that. Yes, thank you. Thank you, it's true, especially with compliments. Like if someone's telling you, like, that's a beautiful blouse. Like,
girl.
yeah, or like if they're like, man, you're looking really great, you know? You're like, thank you, it's true. Or like, thank you, I agree. Or thank you, I've been working hard, you know? Like, just acknowledge it, own it. There is an energetic reality in which you affirming it magnetizes it and brings more of it to you. Like that is just true.
I like your sweater. Thanks. I got it on triple discount because I couldn't pay real price and I shouldn't have bought it anyway. Like that versus like, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love it too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how soft it is. I love how it has a big purple cat on it. Like whatever it is. So for you, are there any other just activation words besides fun and easy that you feel like might be really beneficial for people, or just like what comes up for you when you think about that? Like
when I think about this whole conversation and things being hard, like the art of receiving and allowing is an ongoing practice. And when I hear, you know, can I hold the door open for you? Or I can get that for you. Like that's still, when I hear that, my immediate response in my head is no. And then I'm now conscious of the no, and I like breathe or pause and I say like, thank you, or yes, or whatever else. That took me so many years. And I feel like such a direct, you know, parallel shift in my life and being able to receive and like being in the flow because of that willingness to accept and receive. And so I do think there's an element of the feminine and masculine energies in this. And for me, I was like a type A, like aspired, like hustler type of.
yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you about the masculine and feminine energy. And I think that this is something that I teach a lot on in my women's group. And that basically we have that outward dynamic energy of like productivity and going and getting it. But then there's also this inward energy of like being able to simply receive.
Yeah. And if you're not able to receive, like, I just think that this puts the kink in the hose of your life. And so that idea of how am I receiving or not receiving and really checking in about that. And it could be as simple as like, I got the door for you, and you speeding up and being like, no, I got it. Just being in the art of the receptivity.
You've taught me a lot about this, and you've done it through such a compassionate and graceful way of offering assistance, like pretty much like every time. I mean, when you came out for my baby shower and the last time you came to visit, every time you come to visit, because you have a really, you know, you call it type A, but I just think you have this really beautiful tendency towards like creating clear structure and clear expectations and like scheduling so that things do flow really easily. And so you always offer to help me, and you'll be like, oh, can I do this for you? Can I go to the grocery store? Can I? And it's not in a way that it's like you're being like needy of helping, but like you'll just notice like, oh, Amelia has all of this stuff that she needs to do. You'll offer to help me. And when I resist, like you give me this look, Linda, and it's this look of just like, it's like amused. And I feel like it's like, you're fully channeling like your higher self in that moment, because it's just like this look of like, are you sure you want to refuse this offer of like fun and easy help? And every time I see that face, I'm just like, Wait, yes, thank you. It would be so helpful if you went to the post office and dropped off that package for me. Yes, thank you. I received that. I appreciate you. And for me, what makes it really feel good and work is saying to people, thank you. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate that so much. And just being really conscious about acknowledging the assistance that they're providing and really pausing in gratitude for it. And like, then it's this beautiful experience of reciprocity where like we both feel good. They feel good for helping. Who doesn't love to help and give? And I feel good because it's easier on me. And it's like, it just blesses everyone.
No, I think when I get that smirk, I know the look you're talking about, and those near and dear to me know it too. But it's that moment where I'm like, I've had to work on that, the receiving, and it feels like such a blessing to be able to like be that mirror in moments.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful for it. And I think that, I think giving and receiving are one side of this. And I think also like taking and allowing. And so like, what's the difference? Because there is a subtle distinction there. So, giving and receiving is a little bit more of like, we tend to think of that as a passive energy. And there's also another aspect of like willingness to receive or willingness to have the blessings. And that is the energy of taking and allowing, right? And so taking is a word that has a negative connotation in our culture, because the shadow side of taking is perpetration, right? So like we think about, oh, I'm going to take this from you, and that means you're not going to have it anymore, and that's like a mean thing. But there's also the possibility of taking in gratitude as an active practice of receiving, right? And it's simply noticing what is available. And like, I would encourage you to think of like taking appreciation. Like, I'm going to take appreciation. I'm going to take joy for this moment. Or I'm going to like take that almond croissant and like enjoy it, right? It's like,
I picture the shelf at the grocery store, like taking what you want and need at that moment.
Exactly. And it's like activated desire. Like, what do you want? And can you just, instead of like waiting to receive, could you actually just go out there and take it? And that's like the decision, right?
Yes.
Like, and yes, you can. And it doesn't have to be the shadow side of taking, which is perpetration. If you believe that things exist, that we are unlimited and that abundance is unlimited, and like the recognition that like, there's a certain regenerative property of like the universe where like, if you take something, like more is going to grow in that place. Like, and really like, it's just such a powerful shift, I think, because as women, like, yeah, okay, receiving is difficult. We, or it's like, we're taught that it's difficult. We tend to deflect it, and we think of like worth. Taking is like a whole different level. It's like, wow, women aren't taught to take, and so like, could you get there? We're taught to allow. We're always taught to allow them to do this, be subservient, let this happen. And so, I think it's maybe important to make this distinction at this juncture of like, if you are hearing all of this stuff about receiving, but what you're really embodying is like allowing, those are two different things. Okay.
Try on take.
Yeah. Like try taking instead. And one sentence that might help you with this is, what I would really love, Linda?
What? Tell me.
Anything, like whatever I want, a spaghetti dinner, like, a ginger ale, like a walk in the park, like some hot sex, right? Do you know what I would really love right now? If you say this to someone, broadcasting the lens of appreciation, leaning in, turning on flirtation, and I don't mean romantic or sexual, but I just mean like playfully loving on them with your energy and your essence and your being and appreciating them, and you tell them, what I would really love, you're probably going to get it. Like, you're probably going to get it. And yeah, it's just, I think that's all I got on that. It's so powerful. Please.
Yeah, I have a lot of things I want to take right now.
Take it, baby. I mean, maybe actually, so anything else you want to take us to, and then I think you got to take us to the book club.
Okay, I think I want to take you to the book club right now.
Cool. All right, so you guys, Rise to Thrive book club. All right, I love this freaking book. It's truly my divine feminine Bible. Yes, I'm putting it up there with the Bible. Come on, believers, just hear me out. I know I love Jesus too. I'm not saying there's anything equivalent to the Bible, but the level of impartation and activation and transformation that I've experienced in really growing into the fullness of who I am from this book, it's been massively transformative. What is it? The suspense is killing you.
Tell me.
I talked about it last week in my favorite books. It is called Feminine Genius: The Provocative Path to Waking Up and Turning On the Wisdom of Being a Woman by Liana Silver. So this book, like I shared last week, but briefly, I'll talk about it a little bit more. It's helping you do the three things that I talked about. So learning how do we grow through pain, how do we ground in presence, and how do we attune to pleasure. It's de-villainizing your desire and starting to recognize that desire is a very healthy force, and that desire channeled is actually life force energy. It's not this desire is not the same thing as just like the greedy wanting, like that's the shadow side of desire, but desire, healthy desire is it's like I said, it's your dream seeds. It's like what's meant for you. It's the beginning of like the path of purpose. So
the dream seed to inspired action to, realize.
Yeah. And so going deep into like, what is pleasure? Because for a lot of people, we hear the word pleasure and we immediately have like unworthiness, shame, guilt. I have to earn it. Like I don't deserve it, or that means I'm going to be irresponsible or slutty or whatever it is. But pleasure isn't just sexual. Like pleasure is simply having that lens of appreciation around your sensory experience that you're having in any given moment. So it's learning to expand all 6 of your senses. So including intuition, so that you can feel more. And this book is really teaching on those principles. Like we live in a masculine genius world. Okay. In the Western world, we reward productivity. We say, you've got to go out there and like fight for what you want. You got to go get it. And you need to like chin up and like, turn off your feelings and don't cry and all of this.
Punch today in the face.
Hustle, all this stuff. And so this is like just presenting a different perspective of like, what if we actually lean into the divine feminine energy, right? Like, okay, across cultures. So, yin and yang, the Shiva and Shakti, like masculine and feminine, there are these 2 polar energies that make up everything in existence. And you can look at the embodied expression of penis and vagina, right? The penis is an outward energy. The vagina is a receptive inward energy. And so it doesn't, both men and women in terms of like the sex that you're born into have masculine and feminine genius, but our culture teaches us to operate almost 100% in masculine. And there is so much of your life that I believe won't be truly fulfilled or fulfilling until you tap into that feminine genius. So the art of receiving, the art of pleasure, desire, owning your shadow, making friends with these teacher emotions. So like painful emotions, they're always teachers. There's so much goodness in this book. And if you're wondering like kind of what is it going to really teach you, it's going to teach you emotional integration and embodiment practices that help you feel more confident and empowered just in your skin and in being a woman. It will, if you let it, help you take up space in the world, help you have better sex with yourself or somebody else, help you appreciate your body more, and give you perspective on like how you can just experience more joy and pleasure in your daily life. So I cannot recommend this book enough. Please go buy it right now.
If you want some, get some.
Yeah, and it'll change your life if you let it.
Thanks for the share.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Thanks for being engaged in today's conversation around why things don't have to be so hard.
They don't have to be hard. they can be fun and easy.
My life is fun and easy.
It so is. So we can't wait to hear your takeaways from the show. Hit us up on the social, drop us a comment if you like it, subscribe if you really, really like it, and you want to broadcast a lens of appreciation, leave us a review and let us know what moment was an aha moment for you.
And if you have success around your life becoming more fun and easy, please share.
Hell yeah. Hashtag fun and easy. Hashtag rise to thrive.
Hashtag.
Yeah. All right. We love you guys.
Love
we're so grateful that we're here, and we will see you next week. Catch you on the flip side.
Hello.